I still remember the way her friend said it. Half a joke, half something else. She doesn't know how lucky she is, she'd laughed, leaning back in her chair. And maybe it was nothing. But ever since that afternoon, I can't stop replaying it. The sound of her voice, and the way she looked at me after. It started a week before that, at the repair shop. I was wiping my hands on a rag, the air thick with the smell of oil and rust, when the door chime went off. I didn't look up right away. Most people came in annoyed. Cars breaking down never brought anyone in smiling. But when I finally did glance over the counter, I froze for a second longer than I should have. She wasn't what I expected. Not the usual customer with a checklist of complaints. She stood still, assessing the space like she didn't belong here, but also didn't care that she didn't. Her blouse was a shade of soft beige, sleeves rolled just enough to show faint freckles on her forearms. Her hair, dark with strands of gray, framed her face like someone who had long stopped worrying about being perfect and somehow became more magnetic because of it. "Hi," she'd said. "My car's making this sound. Like a low growl. I'm worried it'll just stop one day." Her tone was polite, but there was an edge of humor to it, like she'd already accepted the absurdity of things falling apart. I nodded, asked her to describe it. She tried, failed, then laughed. The kind of laugh that doesn't fill a room but stays in your head afterward. While she waited, she stood near the doorway, scanning the small waiting area like she couldn't decide whether to sit or stay standing. Her fingers traced the edge of a coffee cup on the counter, just once, absent-mindedly. That single motion, unthinking, soft, stuck with me. Her name was Claire. I learned that from her friend who came in later, a woman about her age, louder, more playful. They came together that next time, for a routine checkup on the same car. Claire stood by the car window, quiet, while her friend did most of the talking. I caught fragments of their conversation through the open bay door. Words like, "You need to go out more," and "You're too serious for your own good." Claire just smiled, half amused, half somewhere else. I don't know why I noticed all of it. I shouldn't have. Customers come and go, names blur, faces fade. But she stayed. Not in a way I could explain. Just the way she seemed both certain and tired. The way she listened more than she spoke. When I handed her the invoice, our fingers brushed. Just a fraction of a second, nothing that would mean anything to anyone else. But she looked up, not startled, not embarrassed, just aware. And then, that moment passed. Her friend, still talking, leaned back against the counter and grinned at me. "She doesn't know how lucky she is," she teased. Claire laughed softly, but she didn't look at her. She looked at me. Not long, not obvious, but long enough that it made the space between us feel smaller than it was. I said something. I don't even remember what. Probably something forgettable. She thanked me, smiled again, and they left. The door closed. The chime echoed. The shop went quiet after that. But later, while locking up, I found myself glancing toward the empty parking spot where her car had been. I told myself it was nothing. Just another customer, another day. Still, I caught myself wiping the counter twice, slower this time, as if she might come back. And that line, that teasing voice, kept looping in my head. She doesn't know how lucky she is. I don't even know what her friend meant. But I know how it made me feel, like something had started, quietly, without permission. Do remember is how she stood by the door, hesitant, like she was deciding whether to come in at all. "Didn't think I'd see you again," I said before I could stop myself. She smiled, faintly. "Neither did I. But my car seems to have other plans." The joke landed quietly between us. She wasn't the type to fill silences. She let them stretch, thin but never awkward, as if she trusted they'd hold. I found myself trying to match her rhythm, slower, careful with what I said next. While I checked the engine, she waited near the counter, tracing the edge of her phone with her thumb. She looked tired, not the kind that sleep fixes, but the kind that comes from years of holding things together. Her nails were short, clean. A small silver ring caught the light when she brushed her hair back. Little details I shouldn't have noticed, but did. When I asked if she wanted to wait in the office, the air outside had turned hot and sharp. She shook her head. "I'm fine here," she said. But her voice had that soft crack people get when they say they're fine and mean something else. The silence stretched again. This time, she filled it first. "You like working here?" I glanced up. "It's not bad." Grease doesn't talk back. That earned a real smile. Small, almost reluctant, but real. "That's a fair point," she said. She told me a bit about her work, Something about consulting, long hours, flights that left her feeling hollow. Nothing detailed, just enough for me to see a piece of her outside the shop. I found myself watching the way she spoke, deliberate, calm, like she was used to being listened to but rarely understood. When the job was done, she reached for her wallet. Her hand trembled, just slightly. Maybe the heat, maybe exhaustion. I said, "Don't worry about it. It's nothing major." She paused, looking at me. "You can't just not charge people." "I can if I want to see them come back," I said. I tried to sound casual, but even I could hear the shift in my tone, the way it angered. Her eyes softened, not in a romantic way, not yet. More like she saw through the easy joke to something quieter underneath. "You shouldn't say things like that," she murmured. And then, almost as if she regretted saying it, she glanced away, pretending to study a dent in the counter. The space between us tightened again. The hum of a fan, the faint scent of oil, her perfume lingering just enough to notice. She finally slipped a bill under the clipboard and said, "For the record, I would have come back anyway." I wanted to ask why, but I didn't. She smiled once more, that same unreadable mix of warmth and distance, and left. The door chimes sounded, soft, familiar, and for a few seconds, I just stood there, hands still, breath caught, wondering what she meant. Or maybe, wondering if she even knew. It was raining that evening. Not a storm, just steady, patient rain that made everything slower. I was closing up the shop when her car pulled in, wipers dragging across the windshield like they'd given up halfway through. She stepped out with a half-open umbrella, already soaked at the shoulders. "I know you're closing," she said, breath uneven, but it started making that sound again. Her voice carried that same half-apology I'd heard before, like she was sorry for taking up space. I told her it was fine. It wasn't, but I didn't care. The rain drummed against the metal roof while I lifted the hood. She waited beside me, close enough that I could feel the faint chill coming off her coat. The smell of rain and perfume, faintly floral, faintly human, mixed with the scent of oil. She held the flashlight, steady, her hand brushing mine once when she adjusted it. Neither of us moved away. For a moment, I forgot what I was even looking for. She noticed, I think. "You seem distracted," she said lightly. I tried to smile. "Guess I'm not great with multitasking." Her laugh was quiet, softer than before. It lingered longer than it should have. Then she sighed, the kind that sounds like more than just air leaving your lungs. "You ever feel like you're standing still while everyone else keeps moving?" she asked. I glanced at her, her eyes fixed on the rain outside, not on me. There was something raw in her tone, like she hadn't planned to say it out loud. "All the time," I said. She nodded, almost grateful for the honesty. For a few seconds, the sound of the rain was all there was. No words. Just that strange, fragile calm that only happens when two people stop pretending. Then her phone buzzed on the counter, the sharp sound cutting right through the quiet. She looked at the screen, her expression shifting. A name flashed. I didn't read it fully, but the look on her face told me enough. She silenced the call and set the phone face down. "Sorry," she said, though her voice had lost its steadiness. "Old habits." I didn't ask, but part of me wanted to know what kind of history could still make her voice tremble like that. When the rain softened, I said the car should be fine now. She didn't move, just stood there, hands resting on the edge of the counter, like leaving would mean unraveling something she wasn't ready to name. "Thank you," she said finally. "You always stay late for everyone?" "Not everyone," I said quietly. That hung between us. Not heavy, but charged. She looked up then, meeting my eyes, and for the first time, she didn't look away. There was no smile, no small talk, just the kind of silence that asks questions neither of you can answer. I could have said something. I wanted to. But instead, I reached past her to grab the umbrella from the hook by the door. Our arms brushed, barely, but it was enough to make her draw in a breath. "Take it," I said. She hesitated, then took it slowly. Her fingers grazed mine, deliberate this time. Outside, the rain started again, harder now. She looked at me once more before stepping out, her eyes searching mine for something unspoken. Then she whispered, almost too low to hear, "You should lock up." And she was gone. I stood there, the echo of her voice caught between the rain and the hum of the empty shop, knowing that whatever almost happened wasn't over yet. It had been 3 days since that rain-soaked evening, and I still couldn't stop thinking about her. Every time the shop went quiet, I half expected her to walk through the door, umbrella dripping, with that same measured calm. She showed up anyway, not by plan, just by coincidence or fate. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, tired eyes fixed somewhere just past me. There was no laugh this time, no teasing warmth, just gravity. "I can't stop thinking about that night," she said abruptly, the words low, almost rough. "I keep wondering what was that." I froze. The question hung between us, fragile but sharp, slicing through the small comfort of routine. I started, unsure how to frame it without sounding foolish. "I don't know either." Her shoulders slumped, and she let out a sigh that was all weariness and weight. "We can't just act like it didn't happen, like it's normal." And she was right. Nothing had been normal since she'd first walked into the shop. Every glance, every accidental touch, every moment of quiet proximity had been quietly impossible to ignore. "I don't even know if I should be here," I admitted, voice low, trying to keep control of what I felt. My hands fidgeted with the rag in my pocket. "Maybe I'm reading too much into—" "Stop," she said, cutting me off. Her eyes met mine finally, steady, searching. "Just stop. Stop pretending this is simple, because it isn't. Something's happening between us, and I can't tell if it's dangerous or just stupid." There it was, the honesty I'd been waiting for, and yet I wasn't prepared for it. Her vulnerability, usually buried under layers of composure, shone through, unguarded, raw. I wanted to reach out, touch her hand, say something reassuring, but I didn't. Instead, I watched her small movements. The way her fingers twitched at the counter edge, the slight tremble in her jaw, the half-smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She was holding herself together, but barely. I'm not good at this," I whispered. "Not at this kind of thing." She laughed quietly, almost bitterly. "Neither am I. But that's not going to stop it, is it?" No, it wasn't. I could feel it in the quiet air around us, in the pause between words, in the way her gaze clung to mine longer than it should. We both knew it. The unspoken pull, the forbidden curiosity threading between us. "I don't want to ruin everything," she said finally. Her voice was so small I had to lean closer to hear it. "But I don't want to let it go either." And then she did something neither of us could ignore. She leaned her forehead against the counter, close enough that I could see the fine lines around her eyes, the way her lashes brushed her cheeks. Not touching me, not needing to. And yet the air between us felt charged, heavy with unsaid truths. I wanted to ask her what she meant. I wanted to pull her up, to hold her, to reassure her, to fix the ache in her voice. But I didn't. I just watched. And when she finally straightened, blinking back something I couldn't name, she whispered, almost to herself, maybe I'm already too late." I didn't answer. I couldn't. The silence that followed said more than words ever could. It was a Tuesday afternoon, quiet enough that the hum of the fluorescent lights felt louder than usual. She came in carrying a small envelope, the kind you keep tucked in a coat pocket until the right moment arrives. She didn't look up at me at first, just placed it on the counter and stared at the floor. I thought maybe you should see this," she said, voice low, almost cautious. I frowned, unsure what to expect. "See what?" She hesitated, thumb brushing the envelope's edge as if it were both fragile and dangerous. "Something from a long time ago, from someone I lost." My heart kicked in for reasons I couldn't name. I nodded slowly. "You want me to open it?" She shook her head. "No, not yet. Just hold it. For me." I took it carefully, feeling the weight not of paper, but of years pressed into the corners. Her hands hovered near mine for a brief moment. A tremor in the fingers, a hesitation I could almost feel. She drew in a slow breath, trying to steady herself, and I realized she was holding more than a letter. She was holding back a lifetime of unsaid things. I lost someone," she admitted finally. "Someone I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. And I never really got over it. Not entirely." Her voice cracked ever so slightly, the sound catching in my chest. I wanted to say something, anything, but all I could do was nod, letting the silence give her space. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine briefly. "I'm not expecting anything from you. I just needed to tell someone." And in that moment, I understood. She wasn't asking for comfort or advice. She wasn't asking for me to fix anything. She was asking to be seen, finally, and completely. I wanted to reach across the counter and hold her hand, but I didn't. I wanted to tell her it was okay, that someone else didn't make her less, that her pain didn't make her weaker. But words seemed too small. Instead, I said softly, "I see you." She blinked, surprised, maybe at the simplicity of it. Then she allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible exhale, the kind people make when they've been holding their breath for years. The envelope sat between us, heavy and silent. Somehow, it felt like the first real bridge between us, a crack in the wall she had built so carefully around herself. And yet, nothing dramatic happened. No confessions, no declarations. Just the knowledge that something in her had shifted and that I was part of it now, whether I wanted to be or not. When she finally left, she gave me a faint, almost guilty smile. "Thanks for being here," she said. I watched her go, hands still resting on the counter, feeling the quiet weight of her absence. And then I realized, for the first time, I wasn't just thinking about her smile, her laugh, her way of moving through the room. I was thinking about her heart, fragile, guarded, and somehow still reaching out. And I could feel mine doing the same, in a way I hadn't expected. A few seconds later, the envelope trembled in my hands as if it had a heartbeat of its own. And I knew that whatever had shifted between us, it wasn't going back to the way it was. It was late evening when she came by again. The shop had long since emptied, and the air smelled faintly of rain from the earlier storm. She leaned against the doorway, coat damp, eyes scanning the floor as if she weren't sure she had the right to be there. "I didn't think I'd come back," she said, voice quiet, almost more to herself than me. I gestured toward the small office chair. "Sit. It's just us here." She hesitated, then lowered herself slowly. Not enough to be dramatic, just enough that it felt deliberate. I sat across from her, close enough to feel the warmth of her coat, far enough that I didn't want to break the fragile balance we'd been holding. We didn't speak for a while. The hum of the fluorescent lights filled the silence, and I noticed her hands, resting on her lap, fingers flexing once, then still. The tension in her shoulders had softened slightly, like she was letting herself breathe again. "I've been thinking," she said after some minutes, words careful, "about everything. Us, the rain, the letters." I nodded, not interrupting. She needed to get it out herself. "I don't know what this is," she admitted, eyes downcast, "or where it's going. But I know I don't want to pretend it isn't here anymore." I swallowed, trying not to speak too quickly. "Neither do I." Her gaze lifted, and for a fraction of a second, it met mine fully, not guarded, not teasing, just present. The kind of presence that makes the space between two people feel smaller, safer, inevitable. I reached across slowly, hand hovering over hers. She didn't flinch. She didn't pull away. My fingers brushed hers lightly, tentative. And then she let me rest my hand over hers. No words, just the quiet acknowledgement that whatever this was, tension, curiosity, longing, it had evolved into something we couldn't ignore. She shifted slightly, and our knees brushed. A small smile curved her lips, almost shy, almost private. "It's strange," she murmured. "How simple it feels to just be here, after everything." I nodded again, feeling the same. There was no rush, no need to define, no fairy tale declarations. Just the soft thrum of connection, built on weeks of stolen glances, quiet laughter, shared silences, and the kind of understanding that grows out of real life, not fantasy. I noticed the faint lines around her eyes in the dim light, the warmth of her hand beneath mine, the subtle exhale she let out as if letting go of something she'd carried for too long. She leaned back in her chair slightly, forehead brushing against the top of my hand. Not deliberately, not dramatically, just naturally. And in that one small gesture, the years of caution, restraint, and quiet longing folded into something that felt like equilibrium. We stayed like that for a while. No conversation, no promises, just the gentle weight of being seen, being here, and choosing, quietly, to stay. Eventually, she pulled her hand back, and the moment shifted into the calm that follows a storm. I realized then that nothing needed to be said. Nothing needed to be fixed or explained. We simply existed in the same space. And it was enough. Looking back now, I realize how much those small, quiet moments changed everything. Not in the way of fireworks or grand declarations, but in the subtle shifts. The way a glance could carry meaning. The way a hand resting on another could say more than words ever could. Claire taught me that connection isn't always loud. Sometimes it's measured in silences, in shared air, in the slow recognition that someone else notices the parts of you you've hidden for too long. And I think, in a way, I taught her that being seen doesn't have to be dangerous, that someone can look at you and care without asking you to be someone else. We didn't rush into anything. There were no perfect beginnings, no sudden epiphanies, just a gradual acceptance, a quiet unfolding that felt like it had always been meant to happen. And in that, we found something rare, a balance between holding on and letting go, between desire and respect, between fear and trust. I've noticed how she carries herself differently now. Lighter, maybe, but still strong. And I know I'm not the same either. I used to overthink every glance, every word, every pause. Now I let the moments exist, and in doing so, I've discovered the patience that love sometimes demands. It's funny, isn't it? How life can bring you to someone in the most unexpected places, a repair shop, a rainy evening, a letter from the past, and quietly insist that you notice each other. Not for drama, not for spectacle, just to remind you that connection, the real kind, isn't about the noise around it. It's about the space it fills inside you. Sometimes I think about the first day she came in, how her friend leaned back and said, "She doesn't know how lucky she is." At the time, I didn't fully understand it. Now I get it. Maybe she did know in some way. And maybe that's why it felt so electric. That moment of seeing and being seen, of knowing the possibility was there, waiting. We didn't end up in a fairy tale. There were no grand gestures, no sweeping confessions. But when I see her smile, just that small, confident, real smile, I feel something I can't quite put into words. A quiet warmth that stays with me, even on ordinary days. I think that's what love can be at its best. Steady, human, flawed, and utterly ours. And maybe that's enough. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?